You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project, where we share inspirational stories of faith, service, and compassion. I'm a firm believer that we're all connected by our shared humanity, and that finding that intersection sometimes just means having a conversation. Today we get to hear from Octavia Sexton. She's an Appalachian storyteller and a teaching artist. According to the John C. Campbell Folk School, storytelling is one of humanity's oldest and most beloved traditions, bridging generational gaps and drawing communities together. Since the dawn of civilization, oral storytelling has been a primary method for the transmission of history, cultural practices, moral lessons, and entertaining tales. It has not only shaped our understanding of the world, but also ultimately served as the bedrock for literature, theater, cinema, and many more contemporary arts. Storytelling has been a vibrant part of thousands of cultures, making the ability to tell a good story an invaluable art and skill, equal parts inspiration, craftsmanship, and artistry. Deep in the heartland of America, storytelling in the Appalachian region also embraces local folklore, including indigenous Cherokee narratives, tales of the Revolutionary War, and anecdotes of the coal mining era. Each story serves as a thread in the rich tapestry that is Appalachian culture, an enduring testament to the region's spirit. I am very excited to introduce our listeners to Octavia Sexton. Why don't you tell us a little bit, can you paint a picture for us of what it was like for you and your family when you were growing up?
Well, we've been here since early 1700s and still in the same area, so the stories and everything go all the way back. I mean, I know where my great-great-grandma actually set up housekeeping in a little sheep house up the road, up the creek, and it's fell in, but the big rock's still there. So just these stories of their lives. And they weren't written down, they were passed down and told. And we would go out to Grandma and Grandpa's get-togethers, and storytelling was always a part of it. Grandpa was a storyteller. Grandma never did learn how to read or write. She always signed her name with the mark, a little X, and if it was a legal paper, then it would be witnessed. Somebody else would sign underneath that saying this was her mark. They were very intelligent, but never had that opportunity. So that was all the cousins. We all lived right around there together. I went to a little two-room school, and we told stories, played games. You didn't have stuff. You didn't need stuff. We was never bored. Had outside toilets. That was just part of our life. He farmed. He raised potatoes, and I'd help. You know, we all help. And Grandma had a wood cook stove, and you didn't have what everybody thinks they have to have. Yeah. And I went on to high school, and I got married right out of high school, lived in two little rooms, again, no running water, outside toilet. My husband worked in Lex a long ways, and sometimes we didn't have a car. His brother or whatever, whoever was going that way, you know, you catch a ride back and forth. And so we lived in poverty. That was my life. I mean, you had family, and there was always something to do. Sometimes things got really hard. We hunted. We raised our own crops and canned and dried stuff, and you treated your animals with respect. I'm a vegetarian now. Whatever you did, you know, you did it, you thanked Creator. That you were supplied with this, and we had to have this.
My grandmother, I heard you say your grandfather was a storyteller. I would say the same thing, that my grandmother was a master storyteller, especially at bedtime for us. Sometimes she also scared the bejeebies out of us because she'd tell this story about Red Eyes and Bloody Bones was the one I still...
Raw head and bloody bones.
Oh my gosh, and I'm thinking now, why would my grandmother tell us that story? But you could lay in the bed and we had a fireplace, and you could clearly imagine something coming out of that fireplace. But what kind of stories do you remember as a kid, and what did you love about hearing those stories?
Well, that was just something you did after work. I mean, even Mommy, they had to work. She had to quit school when she was 9, Mommy did, to work on a farm. You had to. She was the oldest, and she cried. She saw her brothers and sisters go off to school, but her education ended there. And she had a great family, but you had to do this. You couldn't do it on your own. Grandpa couldn't. He needed somebody to help him plow and, well, anyhow. And she would talk about, they'd work every day, and then on Saturday, they didn't have to go to bed early because they didn't have to work on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so all night long would be stories, and Grandpa made little sock dolls and would do puppets, and all this kind of stuff would go on. And Mommy never read me a story, although she could read. She told stories. Grandpa, they were all storytellers, by the way. Grandma was a storyteller, but a different type. That's when the women, they'd all be in the kitchen or whatever they do, and women get together, and they were those stories, and then there were the other stories told by men or whatever. Grandpa told the more scary ones, and he would always sit down, get him a chewbacca, and work up a spit, and we'd be sitting there on the floor waiting for him to spit once. He had to spit once before he'd start, and he'd spit, and he'd always bend down, and he'd give you a story like it was way back and a long time ago. And he liked the scary ones, and he'd tell Rawhead. It wasn't Red Eye, it was Rawhead in Bloody Bones. Yeah, he would tell that one. I thought if I knew who Rawhead and Bloody Bones was, I could avoid him and just do whatever I want to do, because he'd get you if you're bad, And Grandpa always said he lived in the loft, and I would not go into that loft. Absolutely not. If he got me, he was going to have to come after me. I wasn't going to him. And I can remember I was out at Grandma's, I was probably 16. And she told me, she said, get up yonder and get me those dried apples. And I said, up yonder where? She said, up in the loft. I said, I ain't going up there. And she said, I need those apples. I said, I'm not going up there, Grandma. And she looked at me and she said, are you afeared? Are you afraid? And I said, it's dark up there. And you didn't have steps. It was more of a ladder. And Grandpa had made a loft door, it latched. It was a regular sized door, but he made the latch to it and everything. And I said, well, you stand at the foot of this ladder. And I made her stand in there, and I went up and I unlatched that door and pushed it open. And I said, now where are they? And she said, to the other side, underneath the window. There was a loft window up there. And I said, well, don't you move, you stand right here. And I ran as hard as I could across the floor, grabbed those apples, and came back. Because that's how afraid I was of Rawhead and Bloody Bones. Yeah. And then when they passed and the farm was sold, a lot of people from away, we say away, buy up your property because they can afford it, and they were going to tear down Grandpa's little house. And there's a big fancy one there now. But they were tearing it down, and I got that loft door.
Oh,
I got the loft door.
That's sweet.
Yeah, because behind that was my greatest fear now. Yeah. And I got that loft door.
So what do you use loft door now for?
It's just nothing. It's just lint up. It's just there. It's not in my hand.
But it's a piece of.
Yeah, it's a piece. Yeah. That it's just there.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Do you want to have fun this summer while saving money for college? Be a summertime superhero as a camp counselor with Christian Appalachian Project at one of our 2 beautiful camps. You'll have a great time and make a difference in the lives of kids in Eastern Kentucky. Our camp counselors have a blast outside boating, creating arts and crafts, and playing games with our campers. The kids love the activities, but what they remember most about camp are the volunteers who cared enough to spend their summer with them. While you're here, you'll earn an educational award that you can use towards college or trade school, and other benefits too, like a financial stipend. Email volunteer@chrisapp.org. That's volunteer@CHRISAPP.org, or text 859-797-3059 to learn more. We can't wait to hear from you.
So you talked about how everybody in your family was storytellers. How did you know that you wanted to do storytelling as a career?
I did not know that it was an art form until I came here to Brio College. And it was because of the Christian Appalachian Project that I came to Brick College.
So tell me that story.
Okay, well, in the early 80s, maybe it was 79, 80, there was a Mountain Spirit magazine, and somebody had somehow I got a hold of one, and there was a story about Russell Bullock. He lived down on Coal Branch. He worked in cedar and stuff, made chests and stuff, and there was a story about him. And I showed it to Mommy. I said, Mommy, look at this. This is Russell Bullock. They wrote a story about him, and it said he was an Appalachian, and we didn't know what that word meant. I didn't know what Appalachia was. And they said he was an Appalachian. I said, Mommy, they said he was an Appalachian. She said, well, they call us everything else. They may as well call us that too. And she thought it was an ugly word or something. And that's when I realized this is Appalachia. This is a place. And I started reading the stories, and they took contributions, and they pay you. Well, my husband made $2 an hour, okay? We were, so I wrote a story, and they published it and gave me $150.
Oh my goodness.
And so I wrote another, and it was published, and another one. And they started publishing my stories, but still it wasn't a lot. But then I was working at the Lodge Restaurant, that's in Renfrew Valley in Rockcastle County. There was some guy came in there, and he was giving away wreaths. He worked for CAP, and they were beautiful. It was around Christmas time, and it made me cry right now. He gave me a wreath. It had a big red bow on it. It was just beautiful. And he started telling me about CAP and stuff, but he also told me that I could go to vocational school there in Mount Vernon. I mean, this is where we grew up, and that I could get in even though I was an adult. And so I went, and I became secretary. And I worked at Eastern for maybe a year or two as a secretary, and I had my son. And no way to take care of him. I mean, driving back and forth all the way from there. So I needed another job. They needed a secretary for the Christian Appalachian Project. They don't do that anymore, but this guy was like a counselor, and it was above Renfrew Valley up on the hill there. There's an old motel. It used to be a Mountain View Motel. Okay, all right, right there. And I went to work for him, and they had a preschool there. Well, then they wanted me to start working, the weekends I couldn't. And so June Widman, who worked at the preschool there, she's well-known Christian Appalachian Project, and she asked me if I wanted to work for the preschool. And I needed a job. I said yes. So I became a preschool teacher because my son, who was 3, you really need to be 4 but they took him because I worked there. June went on to some other stuff higher up. Me and her are still real good friends. She said, you need to go to college, you're smart. And this was in 1986, toward the end of 86. And she drove me over here and went into the office. I'm in just country, okay? I did not know you could come to Brick College and not have to pay for it. And she drove me over here to the admissions office and went in and got the application and said, she's wanting to fill this out. And so I filled out that application. I had to take that ACT. And I didn't know what that was. I went to a one-room school. You were graded 0 to 100. A 50's an F. Anything lower than that is a real low F. Well, I kept on waiting to see if I could get in. And in the meantime, I'm still working, the school. And finally, I called over here, and I said, nobody's told me what I made on that test or if I can get in. And she looked at it, she said, oh, yeah. I said, we've got the score. And I said, what'd I make? She said, you made a 34. And I thought, oh, gosh. I failed. Well, 36 is as high as you get. I never told nobody that. And I said, can I get in? She said, oh yeah, you've been accepted. I thought, dang, they'll let anybody in this school. And that's how I got into college. CAP got me into college. And it was because it was my boss. She said, you need to go to college. I'm like, okay. I excelled. I made great grades. I took a storytelling class, and he was an English teacher. He taught speech. And I'm a front row person. I excelled. I made good grades. I really applied myself. And I was in the front, and he came in, and he started telling about, we were going to look at these stories, and they were from places I knew nothing about. and lifestyles and cultures, places I'd never been. And then he started telling how, and it was more like speech. And I'm like, I am in trouble. I am in trouble. And he said, you don't want to really draw a lot of attention to yourself? Well, that ain't me. I just thought, I better just be quiet in here. Just hope that I make it through. And I sat in the back. Well, when it came to the final grade, he said he was going to divide us up. So I went in and he started giving us our numbers. These were the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And he picked a number. He got him, and he picked a 5. He actually joined a group, and it was my group. And we all looked at each other like, uh-oh. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And so they all told their story. They did it very, like a speech, you know, it's very, very good. These stories that meant nothing to me. And I knew I can't do this. I can't hide this. And so I told a grandpa's story, and I told Rawhead and Blade Bones. That's what I told. And I did, because Grandma was like a little baney hen jumping around. Grandpa was more, I thought that'd be the safest way, because I can sit here, but still it had to be in dialect. It had to be. I couldn't do the standard English and do a story. And when I was finished with the story, it was just quiet. And they were just looking at me, and he was looking at me. And I said, well, what? And he said, you should have been teaching this class. I'm like, yeah, I'm good, I'm good. And that's how I became known as the storyteller. And I knew it was an art form. And he never taught storytelling again. He stuck with his English classes. And he invited me to he gave me $10. And then I did a faculty, and they gave me $75. And then they told me about other storytelling opportunities. And I graduated with honors, and it has just progressed. And now I'm on many art rosters. I'm with the Folk Life Center as a traditional storyteller of spoken word. I work for Arts for All Kentucky. It's an inclusion program with kids, special needs. I'm one of their roster artists, Kentucky Arts Council roster artists, the Folk Life Center, I told you that one, Partners for Rural Impact. And so through all these years, and I'm 70 years old now, and it's sharing our culture, but I do not perpetuate a stereotype, because I tell all over, inner cities, other state, I've been a lot of places, and I have literally got calls sometime that says, do you dress like a hillbilly? And I'm polite, but I'm like, I really don't think I'm the right person for you here. Seriously, what do you do? Do you drive along and say, oh, there goes one? Yeah. We dress like everybody else. And that's one reason why I dress so different. Because no, I'm not going to perpetuate some kind of stereotype. And I've even been told, oh, we'll give you a contract, in some pretty big venues. They want to know if my teeth come out. And those kind of things. And it's like, no. And so I do tell my stories in my dialect, but if I'm in a place where I know that that I'm being used to show an ignorant Appalachian hillbilly, then I make sure that they give my credentials and all my accomplishments and my degrees and all of this. And then when I get up there, I tell them, I will tell stories in my dialect, but I can speak standard English. And some people will play that part just to get paid. And no. Mm-mm. Because no. Yeah. There's more to every person than a stereotype. Yeah. And there's just too much of that out there.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more-ways-to-give.
So what's a favorite story? So other than Rawhead and Blaywell, we talked about a lot, what is one of your favorite stories you like to share, and why does that story resonate with you?
I like the haint tales. That's what Rawhead and Bloody Bones is. Haint. I like haint tales. They're my favorite. I can't tell them everywhere because they're scary. But any type of scary story is my favorite. I'm known as the Jack Tale teller. Like Jack and the Beanstalk, I don't tell that. But these stories like that originated over in Europe and came and made their way into the Appalachian Mountains and were adapted by all the peoples that were in this area. You had the Europeans, you had the Scots and the Irish, and you have the Native Americans and the black people, and all the people that came together here one way or other, we all had stories. And so people shared this. And this, what resonates through these Appalachian stories is not one voice, but many voices and many ways of life that have come together as a people. I love that because we come from many people. You know, it's not like, what do you think of Appalachian? Well, that's a white European that came over. No, we're everything. We're all part, and that's why we feel so much a part of the land. And this is my home. And I have all these, what do you call them, genes now? You know, and you just want to lay hold on one? It's like, there's so much in me, you know? It's like, come on, when I die, I'm going to fly into every color in the world, you know?
That's very cool. I love it. What impact do you hope to have with young people through your storytelling?
Well, I hope that they tell their own stories, and I share my stories, and I share life stories. I share so many, and I use the Jack tales. They create their own, using their life and their life stories or whatever means something to them, and I help them build around that. And they'll have that, but then they want to tell me their story, personal stories too. I love giving them a voice. This is your voice. And sometimes we're afraid. We don't want to share that voice. Like, I was considered a nobody in my area. I was not from the right family, the right name. Having that stuck on me so long. And even coming through, high school or whatever, and the idea, some of the stereotypes about women that were prevalent, and I found my voice. And I became proud of who and what I am. And when I came here to college, which changed, but CAP got me here. And Lowell Jones, who was here, he was my advisor, asked me, why are you coming at your age, coming to school? I said, I want to be somebody. And he turned his little chair around and put his finger right in my face. Then you need to go home. And I'm like, but I want to come to school. He said, to be somebody, you are already somebody. Another life-changing event. He said it can open doors. And it certainly did open doors. Every one of these little things in my life, a little door opened. And there I went through, and this little door opened. And I go through all kinds of hardships and all this stuff, but story, and my life story, all these years, and then to share with these kids or adults, wherever I go, I do a lot of different things, and let them express their story. Yes, and I don't shy away from talking about poverty or the hard stuff, the opioid epidemic in Appalachia. It has affected all of us. And I don't shy away from any of that. This is our story. And there's stories behind that story. You want to go to, where did this originate? How these stories come here and here and here. Here's this coal miner's story. Here's the doctor's story. Here's pharmaceutical company story. Here's the family story. Here's the kid's story. And it's like, here we go. So I don't have anything off limits as far as story. Except they have to use, I'm in schoolroom, they're going to have to learn a certain language. I'll make that, don't say anything in this classroom that, is going to get you in trouble with your teacher.
Right.
First, I would share with you a folk tale, and I do use the jack tales now because I've done that so long. And so we're going to use an outline. I have the whole outline and everything, what we go through, and it's it's like the writing, you'll understand exposition, rising action, character development, all that's in there. And I leave that with the teacher. They can expand upon this. But I would go in and I'd tell an original folk tale. I'd talk about my life. And if sometimes the school will do research into something and they want to include that, but if they just want me to come in and do, help the kids develop a jack tale, then we use that place. So if it's an inner city, we're using that. That is where their story is going to be. And Jack is the protagonist. They will pick his age, but they have a whole guidelines about Jack is just he's not magic, he's just a person, just like we all are. And they can give him, different colored hair, or maybe he likes to wear a certain type of clothing, but the whole group contributes to developing Jack, and there is a conflict, and he's involved in that conflict. He has to go out and try whatever this may be, and he can have a helper. I limit them to 3 characters because of time. And so they develop a helper, and they develop an antagonist. One thing I do, I have rules. They cannot kill anything in the story because they're so involved in video games and television, and the easy way is we'll just blow it away. We'll just snuff it out. And I tell them, I said, that takes no effort. Right. Think your way around this. And so there's going to be this problem, and if the thing causing it is really evil or whatever, then we are going to rehabilitate it, or else it's going to turn back into a mouse. You can do something, but you can't just say, we're going to destroy it. They come up with the best stories because they use their imagination. And the antagonist is causing this problem, and they not let them use anything from video games, books, anything like that. And I discuss that with them because this is somebody else's imagination. We're going to use your imagination. When I'm down there in Letcher County a couple months ago, after the flood, it's still devastating. And I was working with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. They were making their jack tale, and they had picked, Jack's the hero, and they wanted a bear to be a helper, but they already decided on that, but they couldn't figure out what the antagonist is. And I never had this happen before, okay? Because I have to be very careful when I'm in public schools about anything that has to do with religion, because it's so diverse. And I don't, I just have to, just like a teacher would have to. But this little boy, and he was maybe he was a 3rd or 4th grader, I can't remember. He raised his hand because they get to give their ideas. And I said, see, what do you want the antagonist to be? He said, God. No, that's the bad guy, right? That's the bad guy. And besides, I never let him use that. But I looked at the teacher, and I looked at the one that had hired me to come in there. And I said, look, I've never allowed this before. What do you all think? And because it was that little culture right there, they said, yes, we think this will work fine. And I said, okay, as long as we can say creator or spirit in the sky, just you all, whatever you want this to be, okay, this is what it is. All of them believed the same way in that little group, though. But I wanted to make sure, that it was understood. And I said, but that's the bad guy. And I wanted to see how this is going to go, right? And the teacher did too. This was I love this school that I was working in. And so they create this story that the flooding, it started raining. And Jack and his mom and dad lived up on the hill, but he had Ben, his horse, and Ben always stayed down in the holler. And Jack loved Ben. And it started raining. They didn't think all that much of it, but then it never stopped. And then they heard, and then it's awful. They survived because they were way up high. But the holler was washed out, and people had lost everything. This is what these kids have experienced. And they're here telling me, and they're adding to this. And they lost all, their cows, and And so I'm listening to this, and I said, okay, but it's got to end well. You know that. That's what I say. These stories end well. I said, we're going to have to give it a happy ending, though. And so anyhow, Jack, he was a little boy. And he always wanted to be a soldier. It's a long story. His mom and dad went to town, and he thought, I'm going to find Ben. This was after. I mean, everything's devastated. Cattle gone, everything gone. And he loved Ben. And he couldn't get over it. And so he wrote him a note, and he said, I'm going to find Ben. And he told him the mountain he was going to. It's a place there in Letcher County, the highest place, had a big rock on it. And so they're using their experiences. He takes off. He had a little army jacket he liked to wear because he was going to be brave. And he walked, and he got all the way there at the top. And he got up on that rock, and he could see all the way around. No Ben. And he just started screaming. And all the kids was saying this. He was angry. He said, God, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And all the kids are, and he's crying. He's crying. And I seen some of those little kids crying. And I thought, man, I don't know what we're going to do with this, When all of a sudden, Jack hears something coming up the mountain. And then I have to stop and say, okay, what does Jack do? He jumped up the rock and he hid behind it. And he looks, and it's a big bear. And Jack's trying to hide. Well, the bear gets up kind of close, and it says, Jack, I know you're back there. I ain't going to hurt you. Come out. Now, all these kids contribute to this, okay? Their little voices are being heard little by little, adding to this. And you want to say, this happens. And this is how this story came about. And he comes out, and he says, Jack, God heard you. Jack's like, what? He said, Jack, he gathered up all the animals when it started raining. And he took them to Kingdom Come. There's a state park there now. And they're up there, and they're all safe. But he worked so hard, so long, he fell asleep after he got them safe. And all of a sudden, here you are screaming and yelling at him. And you woke him up. And he wants you to go get the animals and bring them back down. Take them where they need to go. And Jack said, really? He said, yeah, Jack, you're a soldier. He said, you're a little soldier, Jack. You can handle this. And we're going to go get the animals. And he said, I'm taking, because it's a long way. It's pretty rough. I know shortcuts. And he got on the bear's back. They go to Kingdom Come. And there's Ben. Yeah. He hugs Ben, and Ben's licking him. And there's the other animals. And the bear says, okay, Jack, get on. I'll lead you back. Jack said, that's all right. I'll ride Ben. And he gets up on Ben, and here he comes back down through Letcher County and all the animals. And people are running out and getting their animals, And by the time he gets home, everybody knows about Soldier Jack. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. And how they use their experiences and their anger, you see? Because they've been questioning this in this little rural town where, certain their beliefs there, it was appropriate for them because they expressed their anger and they felt good about their story. They made it have a happy ending. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. That is what I love doing, because story connects us all. It connects us all. And Kat opened that little door. It would have never been there. And I tell people about CAP all the time. I do.
The mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. Hope, transformation, love, and service. Which one of those resonates with you the most when you think of Appalachia?
I mean, they all me, every one of them. I'm sorry, but no, I couldn't just pick one because it was every one of those in a combination that's brought me here from all those years ago.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our guest today was Octavia Sexton, an Appalachian storyteller and teaching artist. We hope you've enjoyed Season 2 of The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. You can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels. And if you miss an episode in this season or in season 1, you can find those past episodes on our YouTube channel. Just search for the Mountain Spirit Podcast. Please share episodes with your friends and your family and ask them to check us out too. You can find the show online at christianapp.org/podcast or anywhere you get your favorite podcast. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss a new episode. We'll be back with season 3 on May 7th. Thanks a lot for your support. We appreciate it.